Right, let's get back to the news from the IMF, which hit our inbox yesterday afternoon, didn't it? The IMF has slashed its global growth forecast for 2025, warning of a major negative shock from Trump's tariffs. The US was handed an almost 1 percentage point downgrade from January's forecasts, with the IMF also lowering growth expectations for other major economies, including the UK and China. Now, Caroline, who's in D.C., she spoke to the IMF's chief economist in Washington and asked about the downgrade.
There is a huge amount of uncertainty in the global economy right now. So even for ourselves, in terms of figuring out where the global economy is going, we had to take a slightly different approach than we usually do. We basically established that reference forecast based on all the policy announcements up to April 4th. So that's after the Rose Garden announcement on April 2nd by the U.S. administration. And then we looked at the world based on this set of assumptions. And what we see is a fairly significant downward revision for growth in 2025 and 2026. We're seeing growth at 2.8% this year and going back to 3% next year. But overall, the cumulated downgrade is 0.8 percentage points. So that's quite significant.
It's the biggest downgrade, or the slowest growth, rather, since the COVID pandemic, the second slowest growth since the great financial crisis. How critical is this juncture for the global economy?
Well, it's quite critical because, of course, things could go and get worse if the trade tensions escalate further. I think everyone is kind of waiting to see where things are going to go. And that uncertainty is actually also a factor that is leading businesses to suspend investments, suspend purchases, decide to wait and see. Everyone is waiting and see. And that's never good for growth. So we're seeing that. We're very concerned that even with the pause that was announced on April 9, because that pause lowered tariffs on a large number of countries, but it really ramped them up against China and with countermeasures adopted by China as well. And so under that alternative path, this pause scenario, even if extended permanently, we still see a very sharp slowdown in global growth. Now, I should point out immediately, this is not a global downturn. What we're seeing is not on the scale of what we had during COVID or the global financial crisis. It's a sharp slowdown, but it's not a downturn. But the risk of a downturn have increased, and we estimate that there are around 30% now. That's up from around a little bit more than 15% back in October. So that's, those risks have doubled.
That is the excellently named Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas over at the IMF. Right, well, our US colleague spoke to the ECB President, Christine Lagarde, who gave her take on the central bank's policy diversion with the Fed.
We have inflation coming down seriously. As I said, last reading 2.2%. Our projection for 25 is likely to be 2.1%. Inflation expectations are very anchored around the 2%. Including in the medium term, and we have growth which is projected to be 0.98%, depending on whose projections you're looking at. The US is a different situation, and the impact of tariffs will be different on the two economies.